Vijnanam Astikyam Brahma Karma Svabhavajam. So we're on text 43, the Kshatriya verse. Okay, we'll begin with text 43. We'll read the Sanskrit and English together. We'll read 11 texts and then discuss. Text 43. Sharyam tejo dhritirdakshyam yudhe chapya upalayanam danam ishvara bhavascha kshatram karma svabhavajam. Heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership are the qualities of work for the Kshatriyas. Text 44. Krishi Goraksha Vanijam Vaishya Karma Svabhavajam Parichayatmakam Karma Shudrasyapi Svabhavajam. Farming, cow protection, and business are the qualities of work for the Vaishyas, and for the Shudras there is labor in service to others. Text 45. Sve sve karmanya abhiratha samsiddhim labate naraha sukarma niratha siddhim yatha vindati chachtrinu. By following his qualities of work, every man can become perfect. Now please hear from me how this can be done. Text 46. Yatha pravritir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam sukarmanatam abhyarjya siddhim bindanti manavaha. By worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all-pervading, man can, in the performance of his own duty, attain perfection. Text 47. Shreyan sudharmo viguna paradharmat svanushthitat svabhava niyatam karma kurvan lapnoti kilbisham. It is better to engage in one's own occupation even though one may perform it imperfectly than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Prescribed duties according to one's nature are never affected by sinful reactions. Text 48. Sahajam karma kanteya sadosham apina tyajet sarvaramba hidoshena dhumena agnir ivavritaha. Every endeavor is covered by some sort of fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. Therefore one should not give up the work which is born of his nature, O son of Kunti, even if such work is full of fault. Text 49. Asakta buddhi sarvatra jitatma vigataspriyaha naishkarmya siddhim paramam sanyasyan adhigacchati. One can obtain the results of renunciation simply by self-control and by becoming unattached to material things and disregarding material enjoyments. That is the highest perfectional stage of renunciation. Text 50. Siddhim prapto yatha brahma tatapnoti nibodhame samasenaiva kanteya nishtha jnanasya yapara. O son of Kunti, learn from me in brief how one can attain to the supreme perfectional stage, Brahman, by acting in the way which I shall now summarize. Text 51 through 53. Buddhya vishuddhaya yukto dhrityatmanam niyamya cha shabdadin vishayams tyaktva raga dvesha vyudyasya cha vivikta sevi lagvashi yathavakaya manasaha dhyana yoga paro nityam vairagyam samupashitaha ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodam parigraham Vimbucha nirmama shanto brahmabhuya ilakopate. Being purified by his intelligence and controlling the mind with determination, giving up the objects of sense gratification, being freed from attachment and hatred, one who lives in a secluded place, who eats little and who controls the body and the tongue, and is always in trance and is detached, one who is without false ego, false strength, false pride, lust, anger, and who does not accept material things, such a person is certainly elevated to the position of self-realization. Okay, so I think we could go back to text 43. Very nice verses. We're coming to the very conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. And those who've been here for some time, we've started from the beginning and we come to the end. And actually this upcoming week on Wednesday, it's Ekadashi. It's a very special day. Does anybody know what day it is? Well, that's there, but what makes this Ekadashi extra special? It's Gita Jayanti. It's the day commemorating the day that the Bhagavad Gita was spoken. So usually in our temples we gather and we recite the whole Bhagavad Gita. So please stick around. It'll be nice. Okay, we'll read some text and discuss some and hear from Srila Prabhupada. First, we could talk about these first two texts in brief. Text 43. Heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership are the qualities of work for the Kshatriyas. In text 44, farming, cow protection, and business are the qualities of work for the Vaishyas, and for the Shudras there's labor and service to others. So in these three texts right here, 42, 43, and 44, Krishna is describing the different varnas within the varnashram system. So there's 4 varnas: brahmanas, kshatriyas, vaishyas, shudras, which is attributed to somebody according to the qualities that they have due to their association with the modes of material nature. In modern India, many people have, polluted Krishna's Daivi Varnashram, this divine Varnashram system, and made it into this mundane caste system because I take birth in a Brahmana family, therefore I think I'm in a higher class and I don't want to be treated like the lower class people, even though I have no qualification of the Brahmanas. So we can see clearly from Krishna here what qualities one must have to be situated in that particular Varna. And it's described that the Brahmanas are the head of society, the Kshatriyas the arms, the Vaishyas the waist, and the Shudras the legs. So the Brahmanas are the head of society because they carry intelligence and they instruct everybody what to do according to the religious principles of the scriptures. The Kshatriyas are mighty arms. They represent the arms because they're doing activities and controlling and maintaining and regulating the rest of society. And one term we see pretty common in the Bhagavad Gita is Mahabaho, which means mighty armed. So Arjuna's a warrior, he's a Kshatriya. Naturally, Kshatriyas have these mighty arms for wielding swords, fighting, pulling back these heavy arrows, bows and arrows. In the Vaishyas, they're controlling trade, agriculture, farming, cow protection, all these things that deal with those facets. And the Shudras are considered to be the legs because the legs do all the hard work. So they're doing all the work for the others, assisting the rest of society in their duties. And beyond these varnas, actually, there's outcast or lechas, yavanas, beings who don't even qualify to be part of this system, because at least the Shudra is working to serve others in the higher caste, and this way they're receiving benefit by following better instructions. But certain people disregard all instructions and act according to their own whims. And Krishna described earlier in chapter 16 what happens to somebody who rejects instruction and follows their own whims, their own lusty desires. Does anybody remember what he said? Na sukum, na paramgatim, na, what is it? No happiness, no supreme destination, and no, I have to say the whole verse. Yashastram vidam uchivartati kamana kardata nasa siddham avapnoti nasukam na paramgatim. There's no perfection, no happiness, and no supreme destination. if we follow our own lusty ways and don't follow the scriptures. So Shudras, just by serving the rest of society, who's falling in line of the instruction of the Brahmanas are disseminating knowledge to everybody, mainly the Kshatriyas. The Kshatriyas are using their force to dictate and regulate that the rest of society follows. And then the Vaishyas and Sudras are playing their part in that, and everybody makes spiritual advancement. So it's a little tiny window into Varnashram. So then Krishna says in text 45, by following his qualities of work, every man can become perfect. Now please hear from me how this can be done. In text 46, by worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all-pervading, man can, in the performance of his own duty, attain perfection. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam that we hear from every single day, for those who don't know, there's Maharaj Parikshit, who's cursed to die in 7 days, and he's hearing from Shukadev Goswami, which is the backdrop of most of the story. But before that, there's different sages gathering at Naimisharanya to inquire what's the goal of life, especially how to counteract the effects of this Kali Yuga. So they're inquiring, and they ask 6 questions to Sutta Goswami, who's elected to speak to all these sages there. And when Sutta Goswami begins to reply, I don't want to go through all the text, but just in summary, he says that the point of life is to hear about, glorify, and worship the Lord. And one text in particular, he says, Atha pumbir trisha shreshto varnashrama vivagasaha svanushthitasya dharmasya samsiddhi haritoshanam. Meaning, no matter what place one is placed in varnashram, then samsiddhi haritoshanam, they can attain perfection by worship of the Lord Hari, the Supreme Lord. And this is the same message that Krishna is saying here, that one doesn't have to, because he's a Shudra, a lower class person, drop everything and go become a Brahmana to perfect his life. Simply, he says, by worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all-pervading, man can, in the performance of his own duty, attain perfection. So this is very nice, because Prabhupada often pointed out that we don't have to change who we are, per se. We simply have to inject Krishna consciousness. But naturally, we become purified, and a lot of who we thought we are starts to dissipate in a road, and more we accept of, Brahminical nature, because that's a culture that's there to help us foster spiritual life. So we'll read the purport by Srila Prabhupada. 46. As stated in the 15th chapter, all living beings are fragmental parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. As such, the Supreme Lord is the beginning of all living entities. This is confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra. Janmadya asya yataha. The Supreme Lord is therefore the beginning of life of every living entity. And the Supreme Lord, by his 2 energies, his external and internal energy, is all-pervading. Does anybody know the Sanskrit for these 2 words? The external energy and the internal energy? Not exactly, but that's good. That's close. We were reading this in the Nectar of Instruction like 2 days ago. So I'll give you a clue. The marginal potency, which is the jivas, is called the tatashta shakti. The internal potency, antaranga, and the externals, bahiranga. Bahiranga. So by these 2 energies, the Lord is all-pervading. Therefore, one should worship the Supreme Lord with his energies. Generally, the Vaishnava devotees worship the Supreme Lord with his internal energy. His external energy is a perverted reflection of the internal energy. The external energy is a background. The Supreme Lord, by the expansion of his plenary portion as Paramatma, is situated everywhere. He is the supersoul of all demigods, all human beings, all animals everywhere. One should therefore know that as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, it is his duty to render service unto the Supreme. Everyone should be engaged in devotional service to the Lord in full Krishna consciousness. That is recommended in this verse. Everyone should think that he is engaged in a particular type of occupation by HareKrishnaKC, the master of the senses, and by the result of the work in which one is engaged, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, should be worshipped. If one thinks always in this way, in full Krishna consciousness, then by the grace of the Lord, he becomes fully aware of everything. That is the perfection of life. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Teshamaham samudhartha. The Supreme Lord himself takes charge of delivering such a devotee. That is the highest perfection of life. In whatever occupation one may be engaged, if he serves the Supreme Lord, he will achieve the highest perfection. Yes, so perfection, highest perfection, simply by performing our duty in the Lord's service. But, we have to see that this Kali Yuga, this Varnashram system is not so present. There's not Brahmanas roaming around with knowledge of how to act. There's not Kshatriyas ruling and protecting and making sure we all follow these scriptural injunctions and living in a harmonious way with their rule. It's not Vaishyas like there should be of cow protection and agricultural free trade. Nowadays we have Ugra Karma, big tractors, big factories. And Shudras, essentially everybody is a Shudra in this age, or less, 90% or so you could say, because even like a doctor who is considered like the highest position materially, one of them, you could say making a lot of money, helping people. It's a Shudra because you're working for somebody else. So Brahmana never accepts employment because he depends upon the Supreme Lord. And it's said that a Brahmana will receive charity in the beginning of the day, and by the end of the day, he will spend that charity that he received. In this way, he uses everything that he receives in service to the Lord for offering sacrifice, and he keeps himself purposely poor. Because when one's poor, then they're more dependent upon the Lord. And the Kshatriyas follow very strict religious principles in etiquette and behavior, which nowadays modern military is fought behind a computer screen with drones and all sorts of really harsh approaches, where we see in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna and Arjuna come to the front of the battlefield to see who they're going to fight in a very chivalrous way. And it's described how in those times, these people would come together to fight, but in the evening, if the enemy were to come to my camp, and I'm not there to fight with him, I treat him like a visitor. I give him all facilities. I treat him with all respect and like a friend. So we can see how deferred we are from these higher principles of culture. At this point of worshiping the Supreme Lord from whatever place we're at, this is the main principle, because we can do whatever great activity we can in the world, and if it's not connected to the Lord, then it's just a waste of time. Shrama avi kevalam, because it's only connected to the external energy, which is temporary. But if we connect everything to the Lord directly, this internal energy, which is the true nature of life, the spiritual domain, then our life becomes perfected. We become purified. So my point of why I'm mentioning that, that this Varnashram isn't exactly set up as how it should be in our modern times is because we had no foundation, we had no structure in our life. We weren't in one of these Varnas. So we were just helpless, chasing lust, intoxication, no really goal in life. So Prabhupada started this ISKCON movement essentially to reestablish the head of society, to create a Brahmanical class. And this, I wanted to connect to the point that Krishna says, I forget the whole verse, but Manushinam Sahasreshu Kashasit Yadisiraye, something, that whatever a great man performs, that other people will follow. So we see our modern celebrities, athletes, musicians, these are the people who set the tide of society, and we look up to them. Prabhupada wanted to start this Brahminical class, but Krishna also says that only one out of thousands will actually inquire about this absolute truth and will come to be interested in this, and only one out of them will actually succeed in understanding Krishna fully. So we can see how people are led astray by these other people who we deem to be great, celebrities, musicians, and everybody, and very few are interested in spiritual life. So we should never be surprised that not everybody will be flocking to the temples to transition from this uncultured class of living to a higher class of Brahminical standards. And if we could flash forward, 1,000 years and say that this ISKCON movement flourishes into this golden age and everybody takes up Krishna consciousness, still then not everybody will be living in the temple. So then you'd have to imagine if all of Kansas City was Krishna conscious devotees. You'd still have workers working on the street, on the roads, doing the hard labor. You'd still have people doing commerce work, police doing their jobs, government officials, agricultural people tending, foods for people. So all the same duties would be there. So I'm trying to make the point that we may question why Krishna's saying that, oh, you can do any work and just work for him and you can attain perfection. So why did we give up everything and why did we come to the temple? So my point is that we should see ourselves fortunate that we were in a position to leave behind our past nature, which is very putrid, and learn to adopt the qualities of a Brahminical nature. Because from that platform, it's much, much easier to understand the goal of life. And just to reiterate what that is, Krishna describes the nature of a Brahmana. He says peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, wisdom, knowledge, and religiousness. These are the qualities by which the Brahmanas work. So who doesn't want to be peaceful? Who doesn't want to be self-controlled? Who doesn't want to be able to face austerities and be able to tolerate it nicely? Not be so disturbed in your mind. Who doesn't want to be open and honest in all of their actions? But who doesn't want to be wisdom and filled with knowledge? All very, very, very good qualities. So we're very fortunate to be given the opportunity by Srila Prabhupada to associate with these qualities and then imbibe them ourselves. But for the whole of everybody might not be able to give up everything and come to that platform. So in general speaking, then from wherever somebody's at, they can take whatever they're doing and do it in a Krishna conscious way. Still from that platform, they can be conscious of God, turn to God in a loving way, and develop a perfection in their life. They don't have to do exactly as we're doing. We all have our own individual dharma. And then that is connected to what Krishna says in text 47. It is better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly, than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Prescribed duties according to one's nature are never affected by sinful reaction. So we should get out of the mentality of, looking over there and seeing what these people are doing and judging ourselves to them. Better to do our own duty in Krishna's service according to our nature. Take what we have, what we're given, and learn how to use that as an opportunity, a platform to offer to Krishna. We don't have to reject every part of our nature. There's certain things of our nature that certainly we have to reject. Bad habits with looking at the opposite sex lustfully, bad habits with intoxication, bad habits with eating meat or being dirty and filthy. All these things are to be rejected. But certain things of our nature are there and we can definitely use in Krishna service. Some devotees might be more intellectual. Some devotees might be more poetic, more apt with their hands, doing practical services. So whatever is there, we find a way to use it in Krishna service. And in this way, a Vaishnava is actually beyond the Varnashram system. The Varnashram system that Krishna is describing is not a transcendental thing. It's a material thing for people to plug into so they can make advancement towards going back to God. It's essentially a crutch, something to lean on because we're not pure devotees. So then we need some system to partake into that will lead to gradual elevation. But in this way, it's a very important thing because we have to see society is not there. So Brahmana, like I said, is the head of society. Brahmana gets spiritual knowledge. So simply being here, we study the Bhagavad Gita every day and we acquire spiritual knowledge. And then within no time, you can see how this works for all of society. And in preaching, we may meet people here at the temple or outside, or maybe we leave the temple and go live outside and our family or get married or whatever it may be. Then you can see very clearly how to engage everybody in a way that connects them to Krishna. Simply inject some Krishna in their life. And the more Krishna is there, then there's more purification. And when Krishna is being served, naturally one loses taste in material pursuits. And I want to read the purport by Prabhupada, but it's long because I also want to talk about these next texts. Because Krishna says in text 48, every endeavor is covered by some sort of fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. Therefore, one should not give up the work which is born of its nature, O son of Kunti, even if such work is full of fault. So one may say, such as Arjuna, he's fighting on the battlefield. You got to think this is Krishna speaking specifically to Arjuna. He's on the battlefield. He's a kshatriya. He's a warrior. He's ready to fight. But then he says, no, I can't do this. My bow is slipping from my hand. He puts down his bow. He declines the fight and he turns to Krishna. He says, I'd be better off going to live in the forest as a sannyasi. So this is what Krishna is speaking, that Arjuna is a kshatriya. And Arjuna is saying, no, I think it'd be better for me to go do that because it will be better for me. It will be more peaceful. So ultimately, we're seeking happiness in this life. And we put our faith in what we think will make us happy. So in that moment, Arjuna is saying, no, I won't fight. I'll go take the renounce order. That will make me happy. But then Krishna, I don't know if we read it tonight, but it will come up tomorrow maybe. Krishna says that you'll be driven to act by your nature, no matter what you do. So even if you leave here because you're declining to fight, still you'll go over there and fighting will find you because that's your nature. So as we practice devotional service, we'll see more and more how there's certain parts of our nature that we just can't really escape. And as we take guidance and direction of the bona fide spiritual master, we find a way to engage that nature in Krishna's service. And this way, naturally, we'll be happy if we're acting in accordance with our nature. But in the beginning stages, like I said, we're coming from this conditioned background of just being lost in drugs and darkness and sleep and sex. We have no clue what our nature is because we think my nature is this, and somebody from a higher point could look at you and be like, your nature's like that of an animal. That's not what you want to identify with. So what I've heard from spiritual authorities is in the beginning, simply we surrender and we take instruction from our temple authorities, spiritual authorities, from our guru, and try our best to follow those instructions, and naturally over time that's something we have to artificially seek out. Our nature will manifest more and more, and we'll see when I do these activities totally it's fluid. I'm totally happy doing it. I'm not disturbed at all. It's great. And then I may be asked to do these services. It's not that I reject them and say, no, that doesn't suit me, but it's just being honest that like, you can give me this service and I could do it 5 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I'll be happy. If you give me this service to do, I'll do it 1 hour a day, like twice a week, and I'll be totally frustrated. So not that we just reject it because it doesn't work for me. We should be more open to taking any service for the pleasure of Lord Krishna and Guru, but just being real. But in the beginning, that's not so manifest. So we simply take guidance from those who are more advanced than us, and they can help us discover that more and more. But here, Krishna, he's saying that even every endeavor is covered by some sort of fault. So whether Arjuna is on the battlefield fighting, or whether he leaves and goes to the forest, fault is going to be there. Issues are going to be there. Problems are going to be there. So whether we're living in the temple as a monk, problems are going to be there. Whether we leave and go home and try to run away from Krishna consciousness, problems will be there. Whether we leave brahmachari ashram and go to grihastha ashram, problems will be there. Vaishya, problems. Kshatriya, problem. Always problems. This is the material world. So, best to learn to tolerate these problems and cultivate Krishna consciousness. Krishna repeatedly says in the Bhagavad Gita, we should be equipoised in mind, tolerate happiness and distress, perform our duty. In this way, we can overcome the trials and tribulations that we face daily, hourly, weekly. But if we run every time we face difficulty, how are we going to make any advancement? Difficulty. Tomorrow night, we'll read in the Nectar of Instruction at 6 o'clock. We do a class on that, and it describes the 6 favorable things for advancing a devotional service. Who knows what the first word is? Utsaha, enthusiasm, utsahamai. So any activity we do, even if it's material and not spiritual, it requires enthusiasm. Somebody wants to make $1 million. Somebody wants to become a doctor. It takes enthusiasm to study, to go through the effort, to use innovation. So as we're on the devotional path, it also requires enthusiasm. We have to be enthusiastic about what we're doing. And sometimes we maybe question about, I'm not so enthusiastic, Prabhu. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? I'm just looking for an excuse for somebody to rub me the wrong way as an excuse. Like, that's it. Now I can leave. But we should continue and be determined and be tolerant and patient. I believe that's the second word, patience. We have to be enthusiastic and patient. So when I first heard this, I was like, those two don't seemingly go together. How can you be enthusiastic and be patient? So it's like we have to be enthusiastic to advance in Krishna consciousness, but at the same time patient because it's not up to us. Krishna rewards the results at his own sweet will. There's nothing that we can do to make him give us his mercy. We can act in a certain way that will attract his mercy, but we can't make him give us his mercy, which is a very pinnacle understanding in spiritual life, because we may try and try and try with so much enthusiasm and so much vigor and so much effort, but if we don't understand this principle, we can very, very easily be frustrated because we try and we try and we try and we're just like, I'm trying so much, but Krishna's not helping me. And most of the time, Krishna is there helping us, but we just don't have the vision to see how he's helping us. Like I mentioned, that challenges are there to help us grow. So if we don't face the challenges and we run away every time there's a challenge, how are we going to grow? So sometimes we think Krishna's not giving me his mercy because we think we should be happy all the time or blissful or life should be easy or we should be wealthy or whatever. But how do we not know all the struggles you're facing now, all the challenges you face every single day? It's not Krishna's mercy to help you grow. And this we often can't see from a narrow-minded perspective. We can only see in hindsight. So we make advancement and we look back at all the things that used to disturb us and bother us and the things we faced, and we're like, oh man, I was such a baby. And it's very funny in that way. So the more that we can hear from those who've already traversed those same problems we're facing, even if we take what they say like fully into our heart and accept that, or even if we just ask and inquire just to see their perspective, is immensely helpful. And it will save us much time on this spiritual journey. So I'd love to keep talking about these in the rest of the text, but there's 5 minutes. If anybody has any comments or questions, yeah.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhupada said everyone has a particular type of occupation, and the result of that work should be the glorification of Lord Sri Krishna. So I was wondering, how can I understand the mood of becoming attached to the results of my work? What's the mood of the acharyas? Because we can understand that they're not doing it with any type of pride. They're doing it with the consciousness that like they can do better. This is something insignificant service that they're rendering. Yet, they must see some sort of value in it. Like Prabhupada didn't just throw away his diary. You know, he didn't just write it down and then just think that it was worth nothing. He knew that it could help us. So he shared it, you know, because he saw some sort of value there. What is this dance between the two?
Can you specify your question just a little more? I think I got it, but just like,
there seems to be a balance that one must need between maybe you could help me finish my question because it's a little beyond me. It's like seeing
being detached, but how do we strive to do something good if we're completely detached?
well, it's more about like the mood that goes into this type of work for Krishna, and seeing it as valuable and that it can teach someone else. It can help someone else, but not becoming.
Did you mute that one? Okay, Maharaj, you can speak now. One second, we can't really hear you.
Hi, Bo. Can you hear me? Yeah. I think what he's asking is, why do the great souls go on doing things? If they know how fallen they are, they think everything that I'm doing is useless. So why would they keep a diary? And the answer is, it's like writing books or doing anything, even though he's teaching, acting like he knows. He doesn't think he really knows himself. He doesn't take the credit for himself. He considers that I'm just the transparent medium. I have no value in myself, just like a piece of wire. A piece of wire lying on the road has no value as long as it's separated. But if that piece of wire is connected to a live wire, connected to the power source, then he can do great work in the hands of the Supreme. So a devotee, although he thinks himself insignificant, he knows, but nevertheless, Krishna and his representatives are engaging me in this service. So let me try my best to be an instrument. Nimitta matram bhava savyasach. Those are the words of Krishna. Thank you.
Alright. Sorry, can't help myself. Thank you, Maharaj. That was great. One last quick comment I'd say is that, false ego makes us think that we're important, and the more we come in contact with Lord Krishna, you see, it's not like a self-deprecating thing where I berate myself and put myself down, but you see how great Krishna actually is. In this way, I see how insignificant I am. In this way, Maharaj said it so nicely that like when you're connected to that wire, to the source, then you have to do your part and let that flow through. So, you're just doing your part of letting that the supremacy, the greatness of Lord Krishna shine through you, not for your own benefit. But I can't describe it like how Maharaj did. That was nice. Okay, so thank you everybody for hearing the Bhagavad Gita. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Sri Sri Gauranatai Ki Jai. Pancha Kapatarubhyascha, Kripasana Bhivcha, Titanam Pavanebhyo.